Hi, everybody. It's April 8th, 2020, and welcome to the Trumbull Public Schools' 6th broadcast of Distance Learning with Christina and Jonathan. I'm Jonathan Budd, Assistant Superintendent for the Trumbull Public Schools. I'm pleased again to be joined by Christina Heffley, our Director of Digital Learning. And this morning, in just a few minutes, we'll be joined by two virtual special guests coming from the high school perspective in response to some feedback we've received from parents. Before we begin with some questions and answers for the two of us, I want to again thank you for all the support you're giving our staff and us at Central Office during this complicated time of learning for everybody. Thank you for that. One of the methods we're using to try to give parents the most helpful feedback possible is the weekly newsletters about some technology support that would be helpful in your household. And Christina, I think Wednesday is the key day, and this is a Wednesday to talk about what might be in this week's editions of the parent newsletters.
Thanks, Jonathan. For our third edition, you'll find some useful information for parents on how to manage multiple students on the same Chromebook, how to log out, how to log in, how to make sure that it's syncing with the right profiles, some quick tips for parents on how to do that. In some of our secondary newsletters, you'll also find some information on how to make distance learning most effective, how to support your child, how to create an environment that's conducive for them to learn. And then we also have highlighted one of our district resources, News ELA, which many of our teachers are using throughout the district, particularly in the social studies area, that has a lot of leveled type of reading information for all different grade levels around current events. So you'll actually see some information on News ELA and how it's used in our classrooms. Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about the parent survey that went out last week?
Yes, earlier this week we put out a parent feedback survey. It closes at the end of the day today, Wednesday, April 8th, and we've asked a variety of questions to help us get feedback from parents about how distance learning is going. How many hours a day your child seems to be spending, what hours of the day does your child seem to be working, etc. We anticipate it would take 5 to 10 minutes, and we ask each parent to complete it once for each child they have in our distance learning system. Earlier this morning, we had over 1,500 responses, and that's great. We hope to get even more, so if you're seeing this and haven't done the survey, just go online, www.trumbullps.org, look for our latest communication, and you will see a link to the survey there. We will provide a summary of the survey responses, hopefully by the end of next week, or certainly by April 20th, and we will use the responses to guide our continued distance learning to the extent that schools continue to be closed after April 20th.
And turning to our special guests, who are they and why are they with us today?
Well, we wanted to make sure that as we do these distance learning broadcasts with you all at home, that we're responsive to the range of our pre-K to grade 12 community. And we highlighted some strategies and some special guests last week for our K-5 population, but we know that distance learning is a little bit more complicated at the high school level. So we have two special virtual guests with us today who are experienced, outstanding teachers at Trumbull High School. The first is Elizabeth Capobianco, one of our Trumbull High math teachers. The second is Pablo Sevilla, one of our Trumbull High Spanish teachers. In addition to being parents, in addition to being teachers, they're also parents. So we're going to ask them a little bit about how they are constructing learning for a range of learners at the high school level, and also as a parent, how they are responding to what they see in their children. So we're excited to have them with us today. Our first question is to both you, Elizabeth, and to you, Pablo. Of course, many people out there watching this know you and know the work you've done for our Trumbull Public Schools community, but many others may not know you. So could you briefly talk to us about who you are and what your background in the Trumbull Public Schools is?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Budd. My name is Pablo Sevilla. I am a Spanish teacher in Trumbull High School. I teach Spanish 4 honors, two sections of Spanish 3, conversational and cultural, and one section of Spanish 4, conversational and cultural. I've been working in Trumbull High School for 21 years. All of my teaching career has taken place in Trumbull. And I started in 1999 under the supervision of Lucinda Tempanelli. And it's been a great journey. I'm very happy to be part of this team and a member of this awesome community.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Capobianco. I'm a math teacher at Trumbull High. And let me tell you a little bit about myself in case you don't know me. I'm married with 4 kids. My youngest is a sophomore in high school. I have 2 in college who are currently home with us. One is a freshman and one unfortunately is a senior, so he's missing the end of his senior year. My oldest is 24 and he lives in New Haven and working on his PhD right now. I am a graduate of Trumbull High and I love working there. I started in the Trumbull schools about 10 years ago at Hillcrest part-time. I now teach math at the high school. I have 2 sections, team taught Algebra 1 Extended with a great team teacher, Ms. Graffos. And I teach BC Calculus, which is also UConn course, and multivariable calc. I have coached the Trumbull High math team for the last 2 years, and this year we rocked it with about 50 members and made the state tournament.
So it's no surprise why we've thought that you were outstanding people to join us today. You've been outstanding, both of you, for many years in the traditional educational setting. And now that we're 3.5 weeks into distance learning, I'm wondering, Elizabeth and Pablo, can you talk to us a little bit about how distance learning differs from traditional learning for high school students?
Many people think of high school teachers not really getting to know their students. We see them 1 period a day. We have over 100 students. I don't think that's all true. Totally miss my students, and it has made this online experience very difficult. My classes are interactive, very student-centered. When you're teaching math, anything, you're waiting for a student response, feedback, see how they're doing. And it's very difficult to talk to a computer screen and see how your students are doing. So for me, this has been a challenge. Each week it's a little bit better, but it is very difficult not being with the students every day.
That's a really good question. The difference between distance learning and traditional classroom learning. Right now, after several meetings with my colleagues in the World Language Department, I think that we are doing a great job coming up with ideas on how to deliver the information that our kids need to learn. However, it's difficult because from a classroom to a laptop it makes a bit of a difference. What I miss the most, and what I think it's the biggest difference, is not having that human connection with the students. Because and I never realized that I perhaps took it for granted for so many years, because you walk in the classroom and you teach a class. When you teach a lesson, you put all the information on the board, you write some examples up, you turn to the class, you ask them if they understand or not. If there are some questions, you answer them in the spot, not through 52 different emails that you get in the morning. You also can gauge whether the students are understanding the concept, or do you have to go back to the board and give a few more examples. You are able to use the target language and ask questions using whatever grammatical concept you've just taught in the board. You can turn around and immediately you can start asking questions and adapt these questions in a way that forces the students to answer using that grammatical concept. You can give them an activity, and as they're doing the activity, all of them at once, you can walk around the classroom, you can look at their notebooks and perhaps correct something that they may be doing wrong, and correct them right in the spot. Or they can raise their hand and they can ask you if they're confused, and you can go right there and help them and re-explain whatever they didn't understand or whatever they're confused on. In distance learning, it's very difficult to do that, because every time a student has a question, they need to email us, or they need to find a way to get in touch with us through private messaging in Google Classroom or what have you, and they have to wait for the answers. So I think we all have to be flexible. They need to be flexible, and they need to be understanding of us, and we have to be very understanding of them. I think we are in a situation where we all have to work as a community, and it really takes a village. And the students are depending on us. We are depending on them. And we are depending on the parents as well, because we're a team. We're a real team right now, where we need to make the best of it so that we can all finish a good school year and be proud of it.
So what we've been trying to do is make videos where the students can hear our voices. Some students will learn by watching, some will learn by listening, so combining those two definitely helps. We've been giving a lot of Google Forms and worksheets where they submit them, and that way we're able to comment and give them feedback on how they're doing, because that's the hardest thing. If a student's doing something wrong, they need to know. If a student's doing something right, they need to know. This has been a tough couple weeks getting the process going, but I think students are definitely getting into the swing of it and realizing this is a different way of learning, but together we can make it work.
So one question that we are receiving, and I bet you are as well, Elizabeth and Pablo, is how to help high school students who seem to be struggling with the experience of distance learning. Maybe they're struggling with particular assignments. Maybe they're struggling with just the whole environment of learning outside of school. Could you talk a little bit, in general at least, about how parents could help support students at the high school level who are struggling with distance learning?
So the biggest thing is to ask questions, whether it be on a comment, a private comment, an email to the teacher. They could even obviously ask their friends for help. If you're struggling, ask for help, as you would in a classroom. Obviously, this is not face-to-face, so it's very hard to do. Some other great things are, in addition to the work your teacher's putting on, you can watch videos. For example, Math Khan Academy has some great videos which could supplement what your teacher's doing. You can talk to your friends. Maybe you have someone in your house who knows how to do the subject. You can always ask for them. It is very frustrating, so sometimes what you need to do is take a step away, go back and look at it again. And the biggest thing I would say is to try something. If you're putting something on the paper, submitting it to your teacher, they can see where you're at, and hopefully from there be able to help you take the next step in learning.
A few things. Number one, believe in yourself, and believe that you're not alone. If you're struggling, you're not the only one. There's several students struggling. There are several of us teachers struggling, and there are several administrators, I'm sure, struggling, because this is an unprecedented time that we never expected. So the struggle, we are all in it. The second thing I would say to them is create a routine and get into a rhythm. Put your priorities in place. Wake up in the morning, get dressed just like you would to go to school, and start working, perhaps with your first period class, your second period class. If you know that before English you have lunch, then take a break. It's time to take a break. So follow a routine every day and get into that rhythm, and try not to get distracted, because we're not there to tell you that you're getting distracted, unfortunately. So we all have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions, because no one is watching us. So that's number two. And number three, do not be afraid to ask us questions. Your teachers are here to help you. If you're not understanding our lessons, if you're not understanding, or if you're confused with one of the concepts, please email us, send us a private comment on Google Classroom, and ask questions. We want your questions because your questions are eventually going to lead us to creating better lesson plans. And don't think that you're bothering us. You are not. This is our job. We're here to help you, and we are a team. Believe in yourselves, get into a rhythm, and ask a lot of questions. And I hope that helps.
And then perhaps on another end of that range of students we have at the high school level would be students who want even more. They are working on the distance learning. They have more hours in their day. They want to soak up even more knowledge. What if you are a student or a family member of a student in the situation where they want even more than what the teachers are currently providing? Do you have any suggestions for that kind of student and their family?
So this is a new way of learning. Obviously, some students might not be getting the same material they would be in the classroom. We're trying to accommodate all students at the same time, getting used to technology. There's a lot going on. One question I've actually received from a number of students is they're afraid they're going to be behind, especially my algebra students. The good thing is the Trumbull teachers are all working together, so students are all going to have the same curriculum when the school year ends. So that way, we will be able to tell the Geometry Algebra 2 teachers what they need to teach that we've missed. So if that's a concern, it's really nothing to worry about. If students are getting the work completed quickly and have more time and want to do stuff, my recommendation would be to email the teacher. They could obviously supplement. And there's always online resources you could look at. Like I said earlier, Khan Academy is a great resource. And you could even just Google the topic and probably find some fun worksheets.
Okay, what would it's always a difficult question. What to say to a student that wants to learn even more than what we're doing for our classes right now. Mrs. Castedo, a retired Spanish teacher, during a world language week one year, invited her brother to speak to our students. He was a motivational speaker. And one of the things that really stayed with me was we are living in a time where the world is at the tip of our fingers. We have very smart devices today that can really teach us a lot of things. So start by emailing your teachers with challenging questions, or perhaps inform your teachers of what is it that you want to learn about, or what is it that you want to investigate about. And perhaps you'll find the answer there. Also, if not, this, as I said before, this is a very different time that we're living in. So perhaps this, if you have time to learn more than what we are offering you, this is the time to read that book you've never had time to because of all your schoolwork, or this is the time to write that poem that you didn't have time to. There are many ways to self-teach and to self-learn. But I think you can start by emailing your teachers, and perhaps they can guide you, or they can find the guidance for you of how to continue your learning and have access to a little bit more enrichment.
And as I mentioned earlier, Elizabeth and Pablo, one of the things that made you most appealing for this broadcast was that in addition to being outstanding Trumbull teachers, you're also parents yourselves. And I think that gives you some insight that I know you want to share with our community from the parent perspective. So thinking about distance learning as a parent who's also an educator, what final advice would you have for our families and students at this time?
I have 3 children home right now who are doing online learning. One is in high school, just like my students. And we found the biggest thing that helped her was organizing her room. I'm actually sitting in it right now We got her a nice desk, brought everything up here. She closes her door, and it's just school time. It's important that you kind of get away from the noise, whatever else is going on in the house. You have everything in one place. You're not looking for that notebook, that book, where's this calculator. You have everything together. Set a schedule for yourself. It doesn't have to be the regular school hours. I know some high school students especially are night owls, but set some time. Focus just on your work. Don't be distracted by your phone, by Snapchats, stuff like that. Another thing that's important, which does happen, is you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, a good thing would be to take a break, take a walk, clear your head, come back and look at it a second time. That helps. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You can text your friends, message your teacher. Everybody is there to support you and help you get through this.
As a parent, the best advice I can give anyone, and as a teacher as well, I think we need to be compassionate. We need to be loving, of course. We need to understand their fears and their worries and their insecurities. They can't see their friends. They can't really interact with their friends. And so, all those little fears and insecurities, we need to be understanding. And they are afraid because of the situation that we're living in. I think they are afraid. I can see the fear in my children. I can, when we adults are talking about it, I can see that their fear, and they come and ask questions that demonstrate that they are afraid. So we need to be very understanding, and we have to be very loving. But at the same time, we need to be assertive. And we need to let them know that every day from Monday to Friday, it's a school day, and that it's not okay for them to wake up whenever they want to wake up. They need to wake up early. This is what's happening in my house. My children wake up early. They get ready for school. They get dressed for school. They're not allowed to hang out in pajamas all day. Trust me, I did the pajama thing for about 2 days, and it got old very quickly. So they're not allowed to be in their pajamas all day. They need to get to work early in the morning, and they need to follow that routine every single day. Ultimately, I think our kids, teenagers, and our kids in general, they are looking for guidance, and they look up to us, and they look to us for that guidance. And I think they're going to respect us that much more when they find that guidance, and when we are assertive, and when they know that they need to get up in the morning, and that they are accountable, and once they understand how the day is going to go, I think it's going to avoid a lot of unpleasant experiences with not not finishing their work, or I think once they get out of that daily routine, that daily educational routine that they have, it's going to be very, very hard to get them back into it. So the earlier that we tell them how our day is going to go, the earlier in the game that they understand the rules, the better it's going to be for all of us, for the entire educational community, and for our families. And before we know it, hopefully we'll be on the other side of this crazy situation that we're living.
Well, I think it's pretty clear, Christina, why Elizabeth and Pablo were so great to join us as virtual guests today. But you're also the parent of not one but two high school students, not in Trumbull, but in a nearby community, and they too are engaging with distance learning. What's your best advice for families and high school students at this point, based on what you're seeing?
So I would say two things. One is for parents to be flexible. Maybe let them sleep a little bit longer before they get to work. High schoolers need a lot of that sleep, and my kids have really been appreciating being able to sleep till 10 o'clock in the morning and then get up and start their day. And I would say the other thing, related to our guests today, is that encourage your students to reach out to their teachers. If they're struggling, if they're having issues, your teachers and the school system has some great supports here available for kids. And if they're struggling or they have a question, really encourage them to be advocates for themselves, talk with their teachers, help them understand what they're not understanding so that they can sort of move forward with this. And then there are lots of supports in the Trumbull Public Schools from guidance counselors, principals, staff, but just really reach out if you have a question, if you're struggling, if you just need more information. We're all here to help.
That piece about not being afraid to reach out is central. As you see, Elizabeth, Pablo, Christina, they might even have somewhat different perspectives on some things because our range of high school students is quite wide. But keep in mind, we are here in the Trumbull Public Schools for each and every child to perform as well as he or she can. At the same time, in the situation we're in, the health and safety of our students, our families, and our community is of the highest importance. And still, the educational learning, while important, takes a little bit of a back seat. So here on Wednesday the 8th, we're about to move in to a few days of vacation. And it's important that you hear the message that this is a time for rest, for relaxation. I know that the circumstances of being at home for all of us are challenging, but please recognize the opportunity to take a break from the work that's been difficult technologically and maybe even academically over the past few weeks. I finally want to point out, though, that even though the Trumbull Public Schools through distance learning are closed, we continue to provide during this school vacation meal service to our community. That is every Monday through Friday for as long as schools are closed. It includes this Friday, Good Friday, and any days we're on vacation next week. And as I think you know, but I want to remind everybody, if you have any child in the Trumbull Public Schools, you are entitled to a free lunch and a free breakfast every day for every person in your household under the age of 18, even if they are under school age. All you have to do is drive up to the front of Trumbull High School between 10 and noon, any Monday through Friday, give your name, and ask for the number of lunches and breakfasts for those people under 18 in your household. The state of Connecticut, through this meal service while schools are closed, hit earlier this week 1 million meals served. And this is essential at this time in our community. It is not just for families who are in economic need. There is no economic need test. One does not have to be on free or reduced price meals. And I encourage you to take advantage of that, including this Good Friday and through next week. Trumbull High School, 72 Strobel Road, between 10 a.m. and noon. On behalf of Christina and myself, Superintendent Iasagna, I want to say that we are so happy for the support you have given us, and we hope we have given you some support over these past few weeks of distance learning. When we return after next week, we may be back in school. We may be on an extended school closure. At the time we're doing this broadcast, we don't know the answer to that. But we stand ready to receive your feedback and to respond to it. Above all, be well, be safe, and be healthy during this time in our state and in our nation. Thank you very much.